Hello everybody and welcome to Fudge's Black Hole. Clearly I'm not very good at naming podcasts, but I was told that I was supposed to have to do one. So here it is, and I hope that you can give me a better name recommendation afterwards. So allegedly I'm supposed to yap for even longer than I do on my extraordinarily long TikTok videos, and I should be joined by my lovely, lovely wife as well. We're going to have a yap on the balcony. If it looks like shit in the background, that's because we make currently $0 off social media, and we're using my crappy garden furniture that's about 6 years old. So there you go. So today we're going to go into what the Rentier black hole actually is in a human conversation that isn't just me yapping. Other than that, I'm going to be joined by my lovely wife, and we're going to have a chat about how we met and some human stuff, because beyond the autistic world of economics, I am actually a human being who's sometimes even funny, allegedly. Welcome to the podcast, my gorgeous and adorable wife. Don't ask me how I got her, I still have no idea. I don't think the drugs have worn off yet, so let's keep it that way. Hello, wife.
Allegedly. Hello. Apologies, everyone. I'm wearing my glasses these days because I stopped wearing them and my eyes are in pain. So if you think I look a bit like a geek / someone that asks for money on the internet, there you are.
Men in the comments will validate. We like women in glasses, to be fair.
Right. So, we thought it'd be a good idea. Why do you have a teaspoon in your tea?
Chat, don't crucify me. I left the bag in. I need as much caffeine as I can get.
Well, you ran out of coffee, didn't you?
I did.
Well, anyways, we got a lovely Mr. and Mrs. Cups.
Go.
So, na zdrowie. Make eye contact, remember. Rest in peace, audio listener.
Nice.
The purpose of this podcast is to...
I actually did choke on the coffee. Fuck's sake, man.
Okay, maybe we should start with an introduction. Everyone knows who you are, but if you want to say your classic phrase, this is your time.
Why, hello there. My name's Henry. I'm a former wealth manager and economist, now based in Switzerland, and this is my captive.
Yes, indeed. Hi, guys. I'm Martina. I never know how to introduce myself because I do a plethora of things, and there's many... How did that one girl say?
I know you looked that word up in a thesaurus before you came on this podcast right now, bro. Bro's pretending to be literate. That's actually mad. Plethora. You've never used that word before in your life.
I have. My GCSE English.
Chat, she's actually really trying for this.
Go fuck yourself. You know that one girl who got paid by the hour and she basically...
Which one? This is Switzerland, bro.
No, but she was really angry when she met me and I don't know why. And she told me that people have many facets. So I can't use that term anymore without associating her. So we are going to use the term plethora these days.
Plethora.
Anyways, so you'll find out that I don't never know how to introduce myself because I do a plethora of things. So I'm just going to introduce myself as Martina.
Slay.
Anyways, so the first thing on the agenda is Mr. Fudge. What the fuck is the Rentier black hole?
It's a big question. It's a very big one. Let's start with the background. So, currently in the economy, particularly for the UK, it's the best example of it. If you look at our economy, the productivity has been flat to negative since 2008. A lot of people suggest that this is part of the difficulties of austerity, the treatment after the financial crisis, and some other issues. A lot of people say it's all about COVID and make up some silly conspiracy theories, which is a bit odd. But when you're looking at the British case, the one thing that continues to perform very well in the British case is real estate. It's continued to perform well and will continue to perform relatively well, while the economy itself seems to be hollowing out. Manufacturing as a share of our GDP is completely plummeted. We no longer produce really much of anything, apart from some very specialised things and some Aston Martins, luckily. So in the British economy, productivity is flatlining. The house prices are still moving up. Affordability is worse than ever. And there is an entire generation of people who are reaching for a house deposit. The basic mathematics of life no longer adds up, and the cost of living is eating into everyone's paychecks. So the Rentier black hole is a process I've described which shows that if you have a market with a structurally inelastic housing market that has the ability to be collateral looped, that you can get very easy and cheap mortgages with high LTV, as a good example, and that you have preferential tax treatment on this asset, whether that be commercial real estate, most likely it's residential real estate. In such a case, the difficulty there is that the returns to property are recursive. compared to productive capital, which is not recursive. It has diminishing returns to capital, which sounds very complex, but I'll break it down. In a normal investment, you put more money in, you produce more of the end resulting thing. That pushes down the prices in the market of the end resulting thing, and it means that the value of the capital you put in, the more capital you put in to produce more things, has a diminishing effect and has diminishing returns. Case in point, imagine a coffee shop and you're producing coffee on a high street, and you notice the coffee shop has really good profits and lots of people are buying the coffee for silly prices. If you suddenly make and invest in 100 coffee shops on that street, the price of coffee on that street will be very little. That's essentially it. And then the return effectively on your investment of building 100 coffee shops is zero and probably negative. If anything, you're losing a lot of money. Whereas with the world of property, because it is structurally inelastic, i.e. if you buy lots of it and if the prices go up, the supply of it doesn't necessarily change. You buying a house doesn't mean that someone else has immediately bought one. And you can clearly see that in the UK economy. We can have constantly failed to build sufficient housing in any part of the country, really. London is the worst case, but the rest of the country as well. Housing elasticity of supply in aggregate for the UK economy on a short-term basis is 0.04, which is basically zero. It's completely pointless. Now, in the case that you buy a house and you know that no more are being built, in such case, the supply is completely inelastic. You buying it or demand increasing only changes the price of that same asset. And that's pretty telling for the UK economy. We're just bidding on houses that were built in the 40s, maybe even the 60s, just up in value recursively. Now, with the mortgage system being quite so loose, allowing people under Help to Buy, as an example, to be able to take 95% loan-to-value mortgages, for 5% down, you can suddenly have a huge flood of free money that the bank gives you, almost, to then continuously buy property. After that, because of the tax incentives of property, mainly that you don't have such severe capital gains on your first home or your primary residence, you also have exemptions under inheritance tax up to 325 grand, extending up to 500 grand for a private residence. The tax on that asset isn't that much. Now, the difficulty really becomes when you consider housing and land to be a financial asset, because in that model, that all sounds like quite a good investment. People are fundamentally going to keep on buying it. No more of it is being built. There's even a joke from Mark Twain. You should probably buy land. I hear they're not making any more of it. Either that or another joke in the UK, or the phrase which is telling for the efficient markets hypothesis. It's as safe as houses, which says everything you need to. In a system like that, where the prices of real estate are continuously going up, simply because the demand stays there and the supply is almost fixed. If you're an investor, it looks like a fantastic asset. In fact, over a 150-year study in over 16 countries, it is the sharp dominant asset. Now, that sounds quite technical and quite boring, but basically on a risk-adjusted return, all the volatility in the average return you get, it is the dominant asset across 16 countries in 150 years, residential real estate. And that's without leverage. If you leverage it, it goes even higher and it gets ridiculous. Now, if you have that, what's the point in investing in anything else? Think about it. All of your friends who've got a nice little job and they're saving up money and they're under the age of 40, what are they saving for? They're saving for a house. What's the marker of whether you've succeeded or whether you're doing well in the UK? Whether you've got a house or whether you're on the housing ladder. The entire intention of your first 40 years in the country is to get on the housing ladder. The problem is not that that is a bad idea. That's actually rational because it is the sharp dominant asset. It's actually the best asset in the economy. So that's a rational activity. The problem is that if everyone does it at the same time and invests in nothing else, then the economy does go to shit, frankly, in a very simple sense. That you're not investing in machinery, innovation, starting a new company. Your friend isn't thinking about opening a coffee shop. He's thinking about buying a buy-to-let. If all of your money just gets stuck into real estate, recursively bidding it up, which makes the returns look better, which means that more people want to buy real estate, it recursively then leads to a doom loop, a singularity where everyone just continuously and reflexively buys property. All of it is extended by insane amounts of credit. If you can see in our banking system, it's changed from about 20% of the balance sheets of banks used to be mortgages, and these days it's above 85%. So if you're actually a company, think about it. All of your money, all of your savings has gone into real estate. That means it's specifically eating away at what could be invested into a productive investment. Starting a coffee shop is a perfect example. If you look at the bank balance sheets, they want to lend against property because of its low variance and its high returns. It's secure collateral. So they don't want to lend against corporate lending. They don't want to lend to a startup business. They don't want to lend to new innovation. They want to lend against real estate because it's the safest bet there is. And so now all of our banks are recursively bidding up real estate. Everyone's personal choices is recursively bidding up real estate. And then all of us are sitting there wondering, why have our wages stagnated? It's like, well, no one built a factory because no one had any money left because it all went into real estate.
I think what's important to mention is the people that are taking advantage of buying property and that can afford it are actually foreign investors.
There's a huge amount of that, and that's like the most recent development. The weirdest one I see is build to rent. And so the difficulty of the housing crisis now is that like they're basically being held to ransom by these property developers who are land banking and just sitting on the land. Because if this process goes on, you don't actually want to build on the houses, because if there's more houses, you're expanding the supply. You're actually reducing the effective market value of the other houses that you still own. The ideal situation is you just want the optionality on the land that you could build houses. And so the land is almost like a call option on housing itself. And so then it's more profitable to not bother to build it. You just sit on the houses. It's much easier. And that's what they're doing. The only thing that's actually had some interesting level of housing development going on is build to rent, which is really kind of dystopian, funded by major international investors, real estate investment trusts, and other foreign speculators on our real estate market. And the rent that you pay no longer stays in the system, and it doesn't stay as it used to do in like the 50s and the 60s when you had only a small share of private landlords. It doesn't fund some old ditty's retirement who just bought an old house instead of having a pension fund because that's what she preferred. It funds some international conglomerate, some foreign investor who's speculating on your real estate and who's priced the rent to gouge whoever's left there. This money leaving the system in exchange for no service. A good one from Adam Smith. A landlord reaps where he's never sowed, and he considers himself. What was the phrase? He considers himself entitled to the products of your labor. That's Adam Smith. It's not exactly Karl Marx. That's the founder of modern capitalism. Even he hates landlords. Everyone hates landlords.
This may seem like a very easy question given your very, how do I say, descriptive explanation.
Yeah.
Since I'm trying too hard. See, when I try too hard, I never know what to say, but here we are.
Just freeball it, man. Like, I'm sweating like a madman. Bro's moving like Prince Andrew out here. Like, it's kind of crazy. I am sweating crazy. Chat, it's 33 degrees. The humidity is 80%. I'm going to slide off this seat like she will when I take this shirt off. It's going to be crazy.
Right, so who benefits from the Rentier black hole? Landlords, right? Companies, foreign investors. That's the real problem, is that the UK currently has about a 65% owner-occupier rate of its residential property. And so there are people who are on the housing ladder who are incentivized for this system to continue, despite the fact, even if they are made aware, that it's destroying the productive capacity of the country, the dynamism and its productivity. Because, well, it's their largest investment. In fact, for the UK median household, it makes up something like 65% of their total assets, even if you include their pensions and all that other nonsense. Now, that creates a difficult political situation, which is that these small owners of the Rentier asset are then politically aligned to vote for policies that continue to support the price improvements. This is also where you get NIMBYs from, because they don't want more houses built in their neighborhood. It reduces the value of their own house effectively, in particular during the build when there's a bunch of noise around. It's why you get NIMBYs. It's just people rationally protecting the value of their asset. That's the problem, because even if I make everyone aware about this situation, it's, all proven and everyone goes, this is exactly what's going on. Are 65% of people really going to vote against the value of their largest asset? Probably not. That's the difficulty. And in terms of larger beneficiaries, those are the small fish who've just got into like a 2-bed house down in the south, and it's done quite well since 1990. Sure. The bigger beneficiaries would more likely be the major holders of land. In fact, like historically, that's what's caused these kind of political reforms that have been suggested, such as like the 1909 People's Budget, to be repealed eventually. In fact, that caused the House of Lords schism and a whole issue of a constitutional crisis in the UK.
that these major landholders, the joke then was, what's his name? Is it is something in Bloch. I don't know, Baron of Bloch? Some feudal title of Bloch up in Scotland. He used to joke that he couldn't actually go to the football anymore because he's going to get charged the land value tax, which they eventually repealed after World War I. It never went anywhere, even though it caused a constitutional crisis. So there are major beneficiaries from this. Foreign international investors, the Americans who own over 40% of London's commercial real estate, foreign investors, the Canadian Teachers Pension Fund even owns large amounts of our real estate. Mostly like this, larger corporate landlords, those are the ones who are getting the largest benefit effectively, but 65% of the country approximately is also getting some kind of benefit from this system of these paper gains. They see a benefit in their wealth, but they're seeing the negatives in the outcomes of every other future generation in the UK, the productivity of the nation and the value of its actual entities, the actual economy, not just this paper nonsense of bidding up real estate.
Who loses because of this?
Everyone. Notably everyone in the long run.
Any young person that doesn't come from wealth?
100%, yeah. This is where we get the inheritocracy from. Think about London now. If you want to go get an internship, that everyone knows the pay schedule is absolutely crap. You need your parents to actually have the funds on hand to be able to pay for you to get to London, to be able to sit there in the office, to climb your way up that greasy ladder that's supposedly meritocratic, which everyone knows it isn't. So nearly everyone, it stops the dynamism of the economy, because think about just labour mobility in the country. Imagine a new company opens up in London and they have a fantastic set of job roles and everything else. A lot of people on the salaries that would be reasonable for a company to offer would not be able to live near their place of work. A good example of how that transits into money that affects you would be the young doctors' strikes, nurses' pay, and the bargaining for higher wages that they see that's hit the budget of the NHS quite effectively. Part of that is because they can't live anywhere reasonably close to the hospitals where they work or the places where they work. It takes them 2 hours to get to work. They have to have a car, which costs them more money. The commute takes them more time. It takes more hours out of their day.
Can I chime in this one?
Yeah.
When I was working in the city, I asked for a pay rise because I wasn't able to afford to live. It was impossible how much they were paying me. I was working over hours. I was working until 1 a.m. I was below minimum wage. I was below minimum wage. He knows.
It was bad.
And one day, because I was finishing work at 1 a.m., I was getting Ubers home. And obviously I didn't pay for those Ubers. It was part of the company expenses. And the day I asked for the pay rise, they told me that Ubers are no more. I can't have an Uber back. Sure, maybe the underground was still on, but it was not safe for me to go back home. I lived in South London as well. My nearest tube station was Brixton, and then from Brixton I had to take a bus. For me to get to that bus, I had to walk next to a bunch of nitties. I was approached every single time, and I was genuinely worried for my life. That wasn't the case. And the problem was that as soon as I asked for the pay rise, they said no Ubers. And when I said why, because I got a pay rise, and they started bringing my personal life into it and saying my family should be grateful for me having a pay rise. Also, sure, the pay rise was quite a lot percentage-wise, but it still wasn't enough, and it just reflects how little they paid me in the first place.
That's honestly probably reflected by a number of the viewers who are in London, and they realise how crappy these wages are. Because let's be real, to survive in London at this point, the salaries that are on offer for the starting jobs is half of what it realistically should be to be able to afford to live. But there's the other difficulty of this, which is the companies themselves are also a victim of this process, because the capital that is going into real estate should have gone into productive enterprise. It should have gone into investment. It should have gone into cheaper loans. That means the companies can't expand. They don't have access to relatively cheaply priced trade financing. It means they can't expand their production, expand their premises or otherwise. It also hits at their own costs of operation, the rent of their facilities, the rent of their offices that are all driven by the same same fundamental process. And of course, then it bites them because their own workers need to bargain for higher wages simply to pay the rent. And the only person who's getting paid at the end of all this, in reality, with money left over at the end of the month, is a set of landlords. The companies themselves also struggle from this, and it means that they have compressed profit margins, which means that they have compressed ability to pay proper wages, even if they were being ethical and not greedy.
My question is, a set of landlords, i.e. individual landlords, or also inclusive of landlords that own a company abroad?
Oh, God.
In an offshore company that pays zero corporate tax?
Oh, there's a lot of all of them, to be honest. I'll be honest on that one. The worst offender for a domestic landlord is probably the Duke of Westminster. Sorry, mate. Let's be real. He's got it set up in a trust, and I remember seeing an argument with Gary Stevenson and other absolute bootlicker. There's no description for him. Like he says he's an entrepreneur, and he's just written 6 books that he seems to have filled to himself.
Who?
I can't even remember. He's got some beard, and he looks very odd. But he's like, but the Duke of Westminster pays a 6% periodic tax, and he pays tax on his withdrawals. Yes.
Who paid him for that, to say that?
I don't even know, mate. Check his bank account. Honestly, it's a nightmare. But fundamentally, I can tell you the exact amount of tax that this man would pay, and it is structurally less as a pro rata share of his income than yours. Also, fundamentally, he was given this entire set of real estate by his estate. He inherited it. He didn't earn it. He didn't pay for it. He didn't invest in it. He was given it. And to be honest, all of his forebears have been given it since the Doomsday Book. And so the idea that he goes, he should be allowed to do 6% periodic tax because he's actually paying a decent amount more than you are. Yeah, that's right, but let's be real. There's NHS nurses who are working their hands to the bone, and they're paying 40% rate, 45% rate, 50% rate. This man's on 6%. I believe it's 6% every 10 years on the total asset base of it, which is kind of hilarious if you actually consider the real estate returns that are within there, because he owns the majority of Mayfair, as I recall. Something about like £14 billion, somewhere around that estimate, somewhere around there. The average returns on real estate that we're looking at within that market, just on the actual capitalized values increasing, is around 6 to 8% a year, and before this recent downturn has been a hell of a lot stronger. And so during that 10-year period, in a compounding effect, he's doubled his money and he's paying a 6% tax on it.
Apologies, guys. We have a little companion here. We are in the countryside, so we do get a few flies, so please don't get disencouraged by that.
We get cow flies. I don't know why. The Swiss flies they're all over us.
I don't know what it is, but they just jump on you and they never they just keep on making contact. Usually flies just sit on a wall or something, but apparently these ones are not. British
flies are very British. They kind of ignore you. Swiss flies are like, Achtung, and they just break in.
Okay, shall we go into our next segment?
Open your segment, yeah.
Since this is our first episode of the podcast, should we describe how we met?
Oh, chap. Under this facade of very boring economics man, I have my moments when I have my moves. Mainly they involve kidnapping, and it's actually quite effective. I don't recommend it, but...
We met in Brussels in the worst weather possible in a storm, and we actually met in a very sweaty, sticky pub. The pub that we went to was actually a work event, so very professional of us to meet and...
It's professional for me. I was acquiring assets.
Yes, indeed. And it was a pizza and pints event. So basically, Henry was there with his company at the time and with his developers. The developers were very nice. I don't want to be mean or anything. They were very nice.
Sweaty nerds.
No, they were very cool. But the problem was that when I was walking in, they were standing on basically a bar stool, and they were all standing each other, yapping at each other. As soon as I walked in, every single one of them looked at me. But the way a pervert looks at you, like getting a bit too excited, getting a bit too sweaty, and then staring a bit too much, so you feel a bit uncomfortable. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Let's be so real. This was a crypto conference, and it was full of men who've not seen a woman who isn't on a screen in probably some years, haven't left their basement in a while. I was surrounded by a set of nerds, and I was incredibly bored. And then I saw this absolute rocket walk in, and so I was just like, yeah, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor and compose myself and deviate a game plan. So
You did a shit job at composing yourself, I'll tell you that.
I mean,
I love it though.
the ends justify the means, to be fair.
And
Chad.
justify the means.
Who's on my
Anyways.
balcony, Brev?
Your balcony, excuse me, we're married.
Oh, yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Do the communism meme. Do not overlay right now. Our balcony. Right.
Our balcony. And because they were staring at me so much, they freaked me out. And what did I do? I went inside the pub and I started trying to BD a bunch of other people instead to see if I can onboard them as clients. By the way, I don't do business development, but at this conference, I was told I need to do it. I hate it. I can't do it. I'm not a BD girl.
We're both the same kind of person. Like, we'll do it if we have to, but like, if I have to do like networking stuff, please God, give me like 8 wines. After 8 wines, I can do like 45 minutes of networking, and I will offend everyone there and maybe make 1 contact. Otherwise, I hate it and it sucks.
But that's the thing, I don't drink.
Yeah, you're screwed.
When
mate.
I used to drink, I could have like 2 glasses of wine and I'd be like, okay, I'm feeling more confident. As soon as I stopped drinking, I just hated doing any sort of networking, any BD. I can't do it. Anyways, I was in there, I was speaking to a bunch of people, trying to network, etc. And then I was like, oh, that guy looks a bit interesting. He looked a bit like Hugh Grant. And I genuinely did think like that. Hello. So I went to BD him.
Yeah, we were having a nice joke about, we ended up having a nice chat, and it was all quite funny, because usually everyone at these conferences is so boring. They'll drive you to tears, honestly. Like, if you don't shoot yourself at the end of it, like, you're a stronger man than me. But we ended up having a nice chat just about normal pieces and British stuff. Ended up going on to a joke about Little Britain.
After that, we spent a few days together. The rest is history. When I came back to London, he sent me flowers by post. It was very sweet. And ever since to this day, I never don't have any flowers. Even though now you want to buy me flowers, but I'm telling you, it's too hot. He bought me flowers last week, and basically what happened, they just didn't bloom because it's too hot.
I'll be honest, that's a Rentier black hole. Buying flowers when it's 32 degrees, they died in like 2 days. I spent like $20 on these fucking things, and they're just dead. No?
Yeah. Anyways, he's very sweet. I like to say I manifested my Hugh Grant because I watched so many Hugh Grant rom-coms. That was my celebrity crush, Hugh Grant. And now I have him.
I know she's a wrong one, honestly.
Yeah, he's the autistic version. Cheers.
Hi.
Guys, we're now moving on to the next segment of this podcast where we speak about the latest headlines and we give our reactions to it. So the first headline is New York City sends out letters to property owners who could be subject to a pied-à-terre tax. New York City started sending out letters to tens of thousands of property owners who may have to pay the new tax on second homes next year. Known as the non-primary residence tax, a pied-à-terre tax for properties valued at $5 million or more. Right. Before you give your opinion, this to me sounds very good. It taxes the wealthy. Would you like to apply this in London or in the UK in general?
Let me start with, that's my goddamn mayor. Zoran Mamdani is a legend. Truly. His policies are fantastic. He's a very good communicator. He clearly has very good intentions. I really like the way he does public communications. I think a lot of his policies so far has been great. The one about universal childcare, I think, is absolutely required. Everyone in the UK will tell you right now, if they have a kid, the costs of childcare are insane. And fundamentally, economically, it makes no bloody sense. If everyone's staying at home because the childcare is so expensive, you're literally locking nearly half the workforce out of actually producing anything and paying any taxes. It costs you more money to keep them at home. It's ridiculous. It's locked people out of opportunity. It is obviously very unequal to women who actually want to be participating in the workforce. The longer they're out of the workforce, the more difficult it is to regain and re-enter the workforce. There's been an uptick in programs to help that, but I love that policy. It's a fantastic one. It's much required. That is very important. On his property tax, the pied-à-terre tax, brilliant. Based. Very good. I'm not usually a perfect fan of pure property taxes. I'm more a fan of a Georgia-style land value tax, strictly because it doesn't disincentivize the idea of building larger structures. However, on this one, it's not that distortive because the structures have already been built and they are mansions in themselves. So they're already for a strict use purpose for a single occupant as a pied-à-terre tax. Fundamentally, if you look at the way that cities develop and the value that you can gain by being in New York, adding a pied-à-terre tax is not going to change the outcomes of New York whatsoever. You might see some minor compression in the values of these pied-à-terres because people will be pricing in the fact that they'll have to pay this new tax. And so I think the revenue of this tax will probably drop into the next 2 years, probably until it's like capitalized into the value. Fundamentally, though, it's a bloody good tax on people who clearly have enough money to pay it. It's a great revenue raiser, and it's been one of the key ways he's been able to balance his budget. Now, in London, it would also work pretty damn well, definitely. I think the difficulty then is the calibration for what value you set it at. What was the number you set it at? 5 million?
So there are two tiers to it. You have class 1, so 1 to 3 family homes and townhouses over 5 million. So even if you have one home, but it's over 5 million, you will pay 0.8% of tax rate for values between 5 to 15 million, 1.05% if your property is between 15 million to 25 million, and 1.3% if your property is over 25 million, which I think is absolutely fair. Even if it's your first home, 5 million, I'm sorry, it's a lot.
All of those are completely fine and a good measure. I don't know whether I'm allowed to put up a graph here. Graph! Rate of return on everything over 16 countries, 150 years. The average rate of return on property is 7%, with a volatility of around 10%. Now, in the case that you're deducting, say, what was it, 1.3% of the top end?
Yeah, 1.3.
The property will still be doing relatively well. I imagine the only difficulty I see with this tax is that the volume of tax revenue that they receive from it will be reducing because the actual transaction values of these homes will be compressed because they are imagining that they'll be paying this tax in the future. So it'll discount the values up a little bit. So I imagine the first year tax revenue will be higher than the next 2-3 years tax revenue. Not bad though. Fundamentally, I'm not usually a fan of property taxes directly. Don't get me wrong, it's better than council tax. However...
Let me pause you here. There's a class C for co-ops and condominiums. So any sort of properties over 5 million that are not used as primary residences have a sliding scale from 4% up to 6.5%. But that depends on the imputed market value per unit.
That's the catcher. Okay. Annually.
Yeah, it should be annually, I think.
On the imputed value?
Yeah.
Right, that'll be the part I want to see. So,
depending on the imputed value.
That'll be it. So I imagine these are for units that are let out, they're rented.
Yeah, they're not family homes, not primary residences. So it's probably just the rentals or even properties that are empty, because that's what it is also in New York.
I think the big differentiator there, and I reckon the teeth will be taken out of it, like, call me on that one, will be the imputed value. I've been working on a similar system for taxation for the UK that would work very similar to that. Imputed value just means that you're calculating a value based on what it should be worth. Imputed rent is actually a huge feature of our GDP, and so the ONS do it all the time. Every person who makes a GDP chart does it constantly. It's a big factor ever since the OECD introduced it as a measure back in the early 2000s, so that you could compare countries. Imputed rent literally just means that you look at what a owned house is worth, and then you see what that would cost in terms of rent. That is effectively it. You just look at two houses, one of them's owned, one of them isn't, is rented, and you go, I guess for rent it would cost about this. Now, the capitalization method will be my focus there, because 6.5% as a rate is kind of a lot. That's like the entire return on the asset, which would imply the factor that it should massively compress in value, and it will actually reduce its own tax base by crushing the value of the properties themselves. Now, the difficulty, I think, will come up in how they calculate the imputed values. So Switzerland has a similar one. It's called Eigenmietwert, which sounds really complicated, but it's the same thing. It's an imputed rental capitalization tax. They consider that if you own your own home, that you are receiving an income benefit because you are not paying rent and you keep that extra money. And so they charge you an effective income tax rate on that amount, which is pretty reasonable because you are technically receiving a benefit, but you've also already bought the house. In that case, though, and in the Swiss case, The capitalized value they have is heavily discounted, and they're often allowed to deduct interest costs. Now, in the case that it's 6.5%, I imagine they've done that because, firstly, the imputed valuation, I imagine, will be slightly under the effective current market valuation. I imagine they'll have done that quite conservatively. So an apartment that might be able to sell for 2 million by the imputed valuation will probably be somewhere around 1.2 to 1.4 million. That's literally my first guess. I haven't even looked into it, but in every other system I've ever seen around the world, it'll be the same. So 6.5% will be on the 1.4 to 1.2, not a 2 million in our example. After that, it also depends on how you hold the property, so whether it's going to be within an LLC for the United States, I imagine.
Yeah.
Now, if it is within an LLC, you are allowed to deduct interest costs away from that. And so I imagine that it will be a 6.5% rate on the imputed value net of the interest costs. So I imagine the actual effective tax as a value of the market value of an asset will end up being somewhere between like 0.8 to 1%. I imagine that's the case. I will take a look into it after this to see if I'm wrong, but ballpark, I imagine that will be the logic. In that case, that's fine. No one cares. It's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, we'll do a deeper analysis on it and we'll make a video on it on TikTok, I think. That'll be a better one.
Pretty valid. Otherwise, though, in general for property taxes, I'm not massively a fan of pure property taxes. In fact, it's changed the development state of America because America often has property taxes. They're not very high, and it doesn't really stop anything. They still have a Rentier black hole effect in many of their cities. But the property tax does one critical thing, which is it's a disincentive to develop a plot. So imagine you have a car park, and imagine that you have a skyscraper in the same city with the same property tax. Which one pays more property tax? Well, the skyscraper. Now, that seems proportional and it seems reasonable. But then there's the development incentive, which is, why would I bother to build the structure if I'm going to be liable for more taxes? Simply, you can just have a car park instead. And so what you see with American distribution of building and development state is that a lot of it is low-rise crap made out of balsa wood. Now, that doesn't really give the right kind of outcome that you want, and that's the difficulty of designing these kind of taxes. And sometimes you have to think about the second order effects. And so if you have property taxes like that, the entire incentive is to reduce the value of the property that you state, which means that you can leave it in a state of disrepair and claim that it is a below standard apartment, to then claim that it's lower value to pay lower property taxes. That'd be a good one straight off the bat. These are general cases, not specific for the United States, but just the general incentives. If you instead had a land value tax, in that case where we were talking about a car park and a skyscraper, they'd both pay the same amount of tax. Now, in a market that's housing constrained, that would then incentivize you to get rid of the car park and build a skyscraper there instead to make more housing available, which would be societally, I imagine, the goal. It improves the elasticity of supply of housing, means there's more stock available for the same relative demand, which means the prices are relatively lower. And that's more likely the outcome that we all want, because of course house prices are destroying the lives of everyone who's below the age of 40, and the only people who are benefiting from it are boomers who've already bought them for £3 in the 60s and 70s. Let's be real. Now, that's a difficulty of a property tax, because I think there's been some discussion in the UK about doing property taxes, and don't get me wrong, it's like the guys from Fair Share, who are very, very lovely. They're pushing for a 0.48% property tax, proportional property tax across the country, and it's reasonable, that's fine. But, and it is a lot better than a council tax, it's why I like them. I think though, however, the one step better than that would be a land value tax, which would be much, much more efficient and would deliver the societal outcomes that you're actually looking for.
Anyways, should we do a quick life update? What's the plan for the week?
Oh, this is the difficulty, chat. With European maxing, it's currently like 33 degrees, 34.
Tomorrow's meant to be 39. It's insane. It's way too hot, and also our humidity is so high, so that as soon as we leave the apartment, there's just sweat all over us. That being said, our apartment is a greenhouse.
It's very nice, but it's literally just windows. It's a sweat box. But yeah, everyone say it with me, chat. It's global warming. It's kind of rough here, honestly. We have like Italian summers with higher humidity. We're up on top of a mountain, so the UV is ridiculously high as well. And so basically, you just get skin cancer and dehydration within the space of like an hour, which is pretty rough.
You need to stay hydrated.
As a white boy with a little emotion, I'm kind of suffering up here. And,
He's proper Welsh every single time we go to the baddie, so that's what we call in Switzerland the lakeside. He always stays in the shade and he never goes in the water because he's a little bit of a pussy.
you know what I'm doing? I'm diligently answering all of your wonderful comments because I care about my viewers. And she would hate to see me just, helping everyone out,
Biggest bullshit. Who do you think TikTok? Who told you to start a TikTok?
She did tell me to start
Exactly,
a TikTok.
so go fuck yourself.
Standard.
Anyways, my plan for the week, I'm going to go meet a friend at the baddie. Do you want to join, actually?
I do, actually. Honestly, in this weather, we have the European max. I don't know about you guys. I'm going to try and find a study regarding productivity at different sets of temperature. There's actually a joke about a maximum working temperature, and god damn it, I need that. I can't get anything done. She'll tell you as well. I sit in my pants doing the research behind the videos, trying to think about what to put in the script. And in winter, it was so quick. And I'd also be able to get it off really easily. You're
speaking as if you did TikTok in the winter.
No, but bruh. I mean, in the spring when it was a reasonable temperature.
Yeah, when it wasn't 35 degrees every day.
Yeah, the videos I do are obviously a bit extensive and they take ages to do, but I'd be able to do the research phases of it, some background, some outline in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And when I'm actually filming it, it'd be I'd get 20 minutes of footage to cut it down to a 5 or 6 minute video. And now though, it's so hot and I'm so sweaty and I'm so discombobulated that I'm just
Discombobulated.
Discombobulated.
My guy, he's showing off now.
Mud.
That it's too hot and you can't think, basically, right?
Literally, I'm sweating here right now. I can't hack it at all. My IQ is you could count it on one hand in this temperature. I just want to sit down and have a pint.
Yeah.
I know I need to try and save the economy and do all that kind of stuff and be productive according to some other twat on some other podcast. I've got to wake up at 6 a.m. and cold plunge my dog. But I can't be arsed, bro. I want to European max. I want to get my job done, do my videos, get everything out, do it while it's not too hot outside, and then instead of having a siesta, I want to go to the baddie and just kind of hang out, Just sit by the lake, and then it's wonderful.
That's the thing, a Swiss summer is beautiful and fabulous, it's just too hot to actually do any work. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the baddie, we're also going to start filming other bits and pieces, because you need to make more than $1 off of your social media.
Actually, yes. For anyone who would ever imply that I'm some closeted full capitalist or I'm trying to monetize everything or whatever, I have made $1.03 so far on social media. I am
whole US dollar, darling.
Yep.
Whole US dollar.
Based on your interpretation, I am either engaged in slave labor, alternately, I am the world's ultimate capitalist because I myself am making public goods for zero compensation. Saying that, I think I got a couple of premium people on the Substack, which I very much appreciate. That's very nice of you, despite the fact that I put them out for free. They only go behind the paywall, I think, after 3 months or so. So that's very nice of you. But I think my sum earnings so far from social media is $1 from TikTok. I think I made 200 quid on Substack, which is very nice and very much thank you. But we live in Switzerland, so
come on, guys. Literally, for us to
we're losing
go,
money a lot. So
for us to go into Zurich, which is a 30-minute train ride away for us, that costs us 60 quid.
Yeah.
And we need to do that once a week.
It's kind of ironic that most of my thesis is strictly about a macroeconomic misallocation of investments and resources, and then I myself am allocating 60% of my day to generate $0. I mean, I'm just kind of enjoy it, but broadly my life is becoming a Rentier black hole, and the finances are slowly as well. So
the problem is we're not shitting you guys offshore company in Belize and earning 30 grand every single month.
You know who you are.
Yeah.
Oh, they did not
we mentioned this before, and then we got told, we got called out on an Instagram page.
Everyone got really upset. It's but they're just trying to help people learn how to invest. It's they're directing them to a platform that sells CFDs from Belize, but okay.
And the argument is, you need need to take a quiz other people can't ChatGPT quiz answers. It's so stupid. Anyways.
But they're now a lifestyle blogger.
Yes, they are now a lifestyle blogger.
The only difficulty is, though, is that, like, I have, like, an okay following here, but I don't really know what to do with it because I don't make any money from it whatsoever. So, like, it kind of, like, I like making it a full-time job, but it kind of isn't one because we don't make any money from it.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. On that one, I don't know what I'm ethically allowed to do. So I guess that's a question for you guys. Like, what am I actually allowed to do? And what would not be, like, cringe? Because right now, the only other idea I've got is that I'm working on a passion project of the book about the Rentier black hole, about the entire process. So I'm working on that, and, you know, that might pay a couple of months' rent, you know. That'd be nice. I'm working on that quite a lot. Every time I'm not doing videos, I'm working on that. And some of the papers behind it, the research behind it, so that's quite intensive. That isn't bad. I think it's going to be quite a good book. I bloody hope so. I'm writing it.
The other thing we need to do is, if you guys can interact with these videos, comment on these videos, and share it with your friends, we'd be very grateful for that.
Smash that! We're supposed to do this right. Smash the like button. Is that a thing? Is that still a thing?
No, my point is if you interact with it, we'd be grateful. But if you also tag the brands that Henry actually loves, so Santoni, Boggy, everything he wears, we'd absolutely love to work with them. But we need your help with that.
That's the thing, right? Because, like, I'm not really allowed to shill anything else, and I think it'd be kind of cringe and against the brand image. But, like, what if it's something that I kind of actually already spend my money on and I like? Because, like, a lot of people have already asked, like, where the jackets come from and things like that, and I'm like, is everyone really mad if I'm like, if I have enough to actually continue making the videos, which take ages, if I actually just go like, by the way, it's from these people? That's it. I'm not even going to go like, oh, it's the best thing ever, and use my discount code, but just be like, this is what I have from here, or something else like that. As you may have noticed, my shirt has now changed. That's simply because our microphones decided to simultaneously turn themselves off and not record the rest of the podcast, because we're really not very good at this, because this is the first run of such podcast. Now then, a couple of things that we need from you. Strictly, Fudge's Black Hole clearly is not really a great name for YouTube. It's more of a name for Pornhub. However, we are looking for a better name that would be better suited for the podcast in the long run. So any recommendations you could give us that would be slightly better than Fudge's Black Hole? I'm pretty sure anything would be better than that, but there we are. We'll take a look at any good recommendations and we'll see what we end up calling this thing. Other than that, if you thought this was actually any good and you'd like to see any more of them, please let us know and we'll actually, you know, try and make an effort to do a few more of these. If it was shit, also tell us, because, you know, you telling us that it's shit and why it's shit is also useful for us to either improve it or to not bother with it. It depends on what you guys want. Anyway, thank you very much for sitting through this whole thing. And if it is any good and people like it, we'll come back and make another one. And if it's shit, probably not. Either way, see you maybe.